Hello, I am here for the last section of the Lesson 12 Step by Steps. So we are going to work on pivot tables and pivot charts in this lesson. And a pivot table and a pivot chart tend to go together. Your pivot table is kind of thought of as a report. It's a spreadsheet, and it's almost like a table that you would learn about in lesson 9. It's just going to be on a more powerful level. So, with that said, it's a feature that allows you to manipulate your data. So in this document, we have a lot of information. So I'm going to press Control N so you can see that we're way down here and we have a lot of rows, almost 140,000 rows of information. I did that with Control End, END. Press Control Home to go back. So there's a lot of stuff here. There's test scores, and if you notice, there's test scores for reading, and then if we keep scrolling down, we'll get to test scores for science and math, and then they're by grade level, and if they were proficient. If the grade level they're in, the scale score they got, if they're proficient C level, which is unsatisfactory, nor score, proficient, partially proficient, what grade level the test falls under, K-8, charter, elementary, and then the school code. So we could just manipulate. We could go to the data tab, we could sort, we could filter, we could turn this into a table here on the home tab, and we could manipulate the data. But this is a neat feature because it'll give us a pane over here on the right-hand side, and it'll allow us to kind of see things depending on what we are trying to do. And then, of course, we have a pivot chart that goes along with these a lot of the times, and it's just a chart to summarize the pivot table. So these pivot charts or pivot tables, excuse me, are very useful when you have a large amount of data that you want to analyze and you want to manipulate it. If you're trying to do some kind of totaling with it, because there's a category for totaling, and you can quickly change the math that it is doing. It's easy for filtering and moving things around. So we're going to start in A1 and on our school test data, and we are going to go to the Home tab. Or excuse me, we're going to go to the Insert ribbon, and you see over here on the left-hand side it says Tables, and there's Pivot Table, Recommended Pivot Table, and Table. Okay, so we are in the Tables group right now. Your charts are over here in the Charts group. It's called Pivot Charts, and they want us to do Recommended Pivot Table. And that is not the way you have to go, but this is going to say, hey, you could do it by count by scale score, by test. You could do count by scale score by grade, count by scale score by school type description, or you could do count by scale score by proficiency level. You could also just come over here and do pivot table. It selects it. You can make it into a new worksheet, and then you decide in the pane what you want to do. Either way will work. We'll go with recommended. And they want us to do count by scale score by proficiency level, which is right here, the last one. I'll press OK. So we can see that the proficiency levels here, remember this is count by scale score by proficiency level. So here's my proficiency level and here's their scale score, which I am counting up. And it'll give us a total. Press OK. And when I'm in the pivot table on the right-hand side, I have a pane over here, and I have my contextual tabs. So my contextual tab, Pivot Table Tools. Pivot Table is one word. Analyze. It'll allow you to name the table. It will also tell you which section you're on. So I was on proficiency level here, and now I'm on the scale score. Well, you can also group things and ungroup things is a little more advanced. We can put a slicer and a timeline on here. I can refresh my data if it is not current. I can clear things. I can do field item and sets, which does calculations, again, a little bit more advanced. I can add that pivot chart again, go back to recommended. If I wanted to decide to change what it's based off of instead of say scale score. Now here's the big thing, field list. So if your pane has ever gone over here on the right-hand side, and I click on it again, it comes back, okay? So I see filter, column, row, and value. This is what I'd be filtering on. This is what's in the column, essentially. This is what's in the row. Now, it looks like we have things in the column over here. We see count by scale score, but that's really what we're doing the math on. Then I have proficiency, which are these rows here. Now, again, they look like they're in a column, but it's really reading from left to right. And then, of course, you have the design feature. Again, the layout. You can do subtotal, grand total, report layout, or blank rows. We'll get to that later. Row headers, you can turn things on and off. Column headers, turn things on and off. The coloring, I could do banded, like in a table, every other row was a different color, or banded columns for every other column is a different color. And of course, there's pivot table styles as well. Okay, so they would like us to name the new sheet count. So that's pretty easy. Come down here, double click COUNT count. I could also go to the home tab and I could go to format to do that very same thing. It says the pivot table field names opens on the right hand side as long as you're in the pivot table. And it says notice the data for the no score is blank. This is because the count of the rows is based on the scale score, which is empty for unavailable scores. You will want to change the field to count to a field that has data. If you look back at the data, test data tab, every row is filled by grade, so you will use the count column so that every row is calculated. Return to the counts sheet and drag grade field to the pivot table field. So now we're going to add something. Okay, so up here is a list of all your columns. They call them fields. Fields and columns are the same thing. That are available for us to add to. So if I click on grade and it comes with me, you can see it kind of moving here. You get to place it where you want. They want us to place it in value. Now you gotta be careful because see that little green line down here in the bottom right hand corner? If I put it above it, it goes first. If I put it below it, it goes second. Okay. And they want it to be second. So I drop it down. So now I'm calculating a count by grade. Now, if I don't want count, I can come down here and I can click on one of these ones in value. Go to value field setting, and I could change it to average if I want. I could also change the name of the field if I wanted to as well. I'll do that again. So I click on the field, value field setting, and then I can change the math function that's occurring. All right, so the next thing they want us to do is to drag this count by scale score, which is what we originally brought here. So they want us to get rid of it. So there's a couple ways to do this. I can click on it down here in the bottom right hand corner and I can fling it over here. See the little X? Let it go and it's gone. I can undo that. The other thing I can do is I can press the down arrow here and I can press remove field. So I think it's pretty easy just to grab it and fling it over here and it goes away also. Okay. Says drag the grade field to the columns area. I'm coming back up here. So what you're also seeing at this point is that I can use the same field more than once. So I drag it down here to columns. So here's the difference, right? Values is the total, in this case, the count. And then grade is the individual columns. I'm not doing the math on the columns. I'm displaying them. Where rows, I'm displaying by proficiency. And then filter, I'm choosing what to display. Hope that clarifies for you. All right, so now it says drag the test field to filter. So scroll up here, grab test, drag it down to filter. Okay, and now up here, your filter is usually always on the first row, and that will allow me to show or not show things based on the test that it is. So we want to do math first. So I come here to B1, I drop this down, and notice I can select multiple fields by enabling select multiple items. And if I only want to show math, I would turn the rest of these off. If I wanted to do a couple of these, I could just deselect them and have I could have just 2 showing up before. So I'm going to select multiple items, and I'm going to pick math. That, in this case now, that means that I'm only showing math. So I'm going to press OK. And this is all the information just for math. Here's your little filter icon. This is temporary. Everything is still running in the background. You can see there's a little filter icon over here letting me know that I'm filtering by test. So it's just a very quick way to start showing things or not showing things. So I want to filter by test. I want to see each individual grade by proficiency level, and I want to count those grade values. And I did all that real quick, even quicker than a table, even quicker than a spreadsheet, which is pretty quick. All right, so now it says to pick reading. So I'm going to filter by reading. So I drop down and I pick reading and I press OK. Now these are the reading scores. All right, so now we're going to look at a pivot chart. So a pivot chart is an essential tool to help organize and arrange large amounts of data from a worksheet. In addition to summarizing a huge amount of data, you can visualize the information in a simple chart. It says on the test data worksheet, click in A1. So I'm going to go back over here. We could use the stuff here. I just want you to know. Okay, but pretend like we're not when we want to start from scratch. So I'm going to test data. I'm in A1. I'm going to insert in the charts group this time in pivot chart. Okay, so I can do pivot chart and I can do pivot table. So watch, if I click on pivot chart and pivot table, okay, it would insert both at the same time. Or I could just do a pivot chart if I wanted to and insert it that way. Okay. So they want us to go to the Insert tab and click on the Pivot Chart button and then choose Pivot Chart. And our dialog box appears, the Create Pivot Chart. And we can change the range if we wanted to, but it's going to select everything. I could use another source, an external source. I can do a new worksheet or an existing worksheet. So we're going to do a new worksheet. And we're going to press OK. And note that the table has to come with the chart. So essentially, you're always creating the two at the same time. Okay, so if I'm over here in pivot table, I have my pane over here on the right-hand side. That represents the table. Filters, columns, rows, and values. If I'm in my chart, it's filters, legends, access, and then values. Okay, so big thing here, okay, is don't get confused. If I'm on the table, it's filter, column, rows, and values. If I'm in the actual chart, it's filter, legend, access, values. It's all the same. It's just that because you're using two different tools in Excel, the names change. Okay, so the legend becomes column and the rows become access, and then the other two are the same, filter and values. Okay, so we're in the pivot table part, and they want us to grab, or excuse me, we're in the chart part, and they want us to grab test, and they want the test to be the filter. So I drag it down here, and it starts to populate on the left-hand side. I want grade by values. Okay, so I'm counting. It's always count. Again, you can click on this, value field settings, and change the function if you want to. So I'm filtering by the test, I'm counting by the grade, and then I am going to do proficiency level, and I'm going to drag that down to the legend. Okay, so now the legend is, remember, this is the columns, and access essentially is the rows if you go back to clicking over here. And then it says, okay, so let's make sure I got this right. Test is filter, grade is value, grade is access. And again, if you ever mess this up, just click on it and flip it to the left and it will be fixed. Oops, so click back on the chart. So I'm going to do grade on access, drop it down. And then it says drag proficiency level to the legend, which we have. And then it says moves the chart to the left of the worksheet and below it. So we move it down here. And then they want us to show you how these two are interconnected. And so right now, these are my grade levels, and then each column stands for their proficiency level. So I can filter, and I can filter the table, and I can filter the chart. Doesn't really matter. So I'm going to go to the chart since we're learning about those. I'm going to click on this test, and I'm going to pick science, and press OK. Now it changes up here, and it changes down here, but these are only the science proficiency categories. And then it says, click the Format tab. So notice Chart Tools has 3. Analyze. Again, we could name the chart. We could do a slicer and a timeline. We could refresh the data if we thought a connection was bad. The field list can come back. We can add all the elements to our charts. These are charts our design and format are the same as they were when we were inserting regular charts. They want us to go to format, and they want us to click on text box, and they want us to insert the shape at the top of the chart. So essentially what we're doing here is makeshift chart title, and we're going to do student science test scores. And we are going to click on the outside. So we're ensuring we're doing it to the whole thing. We're going to go to the home tab. We're going to make it bold, and we're going to change it to size 18. Now do note you could come over here to chart elements and you could add things as well. So we could have a chart title if we really wanted to. They're just showing you different options for doing things. Then it says to click in A3. So we'll come up here, and they're going to show you how you can rename this. So if I click on it, I can double click, or I can just come up here to the formula bar and I can change it as well. Press enter and it changes. So these names can all be changed. And then it says click F4, and they want us to move these things around. So now we're going to see how you can move these around. So if I click on F4, okay, and I press down, if I press down here and get this down arrow is what I'm trying to go for. So I'm gonna click off, click on F4, I'm gonna come up just a little bit, and I'm gonna press that down arrow once I get the down black arrow, and then I'm gonna move my arm, okay, over here to the left just a little bit to get the move cursor, and then I'm gonna move my arm to the left, and notice this green bar that appears, okay? This is gonna allow me to move or rearrange these if I want to. So if I don't want unsatisfactory at the end, I can click and drag and I can move it. So they want it between no score and partially proficient. So essentially they're trying to go from they didn't test, unsatisfactory, partially proficient to proficient. So they just want it to be in a little more organized manner than what it was pulling from in the test data. Okay, so we'll do that one more time. So we're going to do advanced. Okay, so we're going to take advanced over here. I clicked on B4. Got the little down arrow. I'm gonna come over here and I'm gonna grab my move cursor, and then I'm gonna get that green vertical bar, and I'm gonna move my arm to the right, and they want this to go between proficiency and proficient and grand total. And now it's in a little bit more logical order, but here's the big thing. Look down here, it changed in the chart as well. Okay, so it's no score, unsatisfactory, partially proficient, and advanced, and it mirrors here. If it ever didn't, you could come up here and you could refresh it if needed. Thanks. Hope that helps.